Welcome to Historical Studies. In this video, we delve deeper into Dyatlov Pass and look at the three clues everyone misses. In February 1959, 9 hikers went into the Ural Mountains and never came back. When search teams finally found their campsite, nothing made sense. The tent had been cut open from the inside. Footprints led away into the snow and darkness. The bodies were found far from camp, scattered in different places. Some had no shoes. Some were missing warm clothing. A few had injuries so shocking that people spent years inventing wild theories to explain them. That is why the Dyatlov Pass case became one of the most famous mysteries in the world. Maybe the biggest clues were not the strangest ones. Maybe people were looking in the wrong direction. When you slow down and look carefully at what was actually found, 3 details stand out. Those 3 details may tell a much more real and much more chilling story. The group was led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student. The hikers were not beginners. They were young, skilled, and used to difficult winter trips. In late January 1959, they set out across the northern Ural Mountains on a demanding ski expedition. There were originally 10 people in the group, but one of them, Yuri Yudin, turned back early after his health problems got worse. That decision saved his life. The other 9 continued on alone. Diaries and photos later helped investigators trace much of their route. By January 31st, they had reached the edge of the highland area and left extra supplies behind for the return trip. The next day, February 1st, they moved up onto the slope of Kholat Shachel, where they made camp. That was the last night any of them were seen alive. When the group did not return on time, search teams were sent out to find them. What they discovered turned the case into a lasting mystery. The tent was found abandoned on the slope, partly covered in snow. Most of the group's gear was still inside, including shoes and warm clothing. Investigators concluded that the tent had been cut open from the inside. From there, footprints led away from the camp toward the tree line. Some of those tracks looked as if they were made by people wearing only socks, or a single shoe, or no shoes at all. About 1.5 kilometers away, under a large cedar tree, searchers found the first 2 bodies near the remains of a small fire. 3 more bodies were later found between that tree and the tent, as if they had been trying to make their way back. The last 4 were discovered months later in a ravine under deep snow. One of the most important clues is also one of the easiest to overlook: the footprints. Many people imagine the group running out of the tent in total panic, as if something terrifying exploded around them and sent them in every direction. But that is not what the evidence suggests. Investigators found tracks leading away from the tent in a more orderly way. That matters, because it tells us the hikers were still thinking clearly enough to move together, at least at first. This does not mean they were calm. It means they likely believed staying in the tent was more dangerous than leaving it. That is a huge difference. If they thought the slope above them was unstable, or that snow could crash down onto the tent, getting out fast would make sense. And if they expected to return after a few minutes, that could explain why some of them left without boots or heavy clothing. So the footprints do not point to madness. They point to a decision, an urgent one, but still a decision. The second clue is the clothing, because it shows this was not one single moment of disaster. it happened in stages. When the bodies were found, some of the hikers were badly underdressed for that level of cold, but others were wearing extra layers that had clearly belonged to other members of the group. That tells us something very important. At least some of them were alive long enough to react, make choices, and try to help each other survive. This changes the whole way we picture that night. Instead of one sudden mystery that killed everyone at once, we see a group trying to adapt after leaving the tent. Some likely died first from the cold. The others then took clothing from those who had already passed away, not out of cruelty, but out of desperation. In those conditions, every layer mattered. Every glove, every sock, every piece of insulation could mean a few more minutes of life. So the clothing is not just a sad detail. It is proof that even in the middle of chaos, they were still fighting to stay alive. The third clue is the injuries, because this is the part that pushed the case into legend. Some of the hikers died from hypothermia, but 3 had much more serious injuries, including major chest trauma and a skull fracture. For years, people looked at those details and assumed something unbelievable must have happened. That is when the story began to fill with theories about secret weapons, military tests, or something stranger. But the injuries do not automatically point to murder or the supernatural. What makes this clue important is that the worst injuries were found on the hikers discovered later in the ravine, not at the tent itself. That suggests the night unfolded in stages. Modern researchers argued that a slab of dense snow could have hit the tent area with enough force to cause severe internal injuries without leaving behind the kind of giant avalanche scene most people imagine. In other words, people may have rejected the avalanche idea for years because they were picturing the wrong kind of avalanche, the wrong slab. And then there are the missing eyes and the missing tongue, which sound horrifying. Bodies left for months in snow, water, and open exposure can suffer heavy, soft tissue damage after death. That detail is disturbing, but it is not solid proof of anything mysterious. These 3 clues matter because they fit together like parts of the same story. First, the footprints suggest the group did not lose control right away. They left the tent quickly, but not in blind panic. That points to a sudden danger they believed was real, like unstable snow above the campsite. Then the clothing shows what happened next. After getting away from the tent, they did not all die at once. Some survived longer, tried to stay warm, built a fire, and used clothing from those who had already died. That means there was an effort to survive, even after everything started going wrong. Finally, the injuries help explain why this case looked so strange from the beginning. Severe trauma made people think of violence or a cover-up. But modern snow slide research showed that a dense snow slab could plausibly cause those injuries without creating the kind of giant avalanche scene people expected. Together, the clues point to a terrible accident, not a supernatural event. Because the case looked so strange, other theories quickly filled the gaps. People pointed to glowing orange lights seen in the sky, possible military activity, secret weapons tests, attacks by local Mansi people, even unidentified flying objects. And once those ideas took hold, every unusual detail seemed to support them. The problem is that strange details do not always mean a strange cause. A case can look bizarre and still come from a natural disaster followed by confusion, injury, and extreme cold. The mystery also grew because the early Soviet case ended with vague wording about an unknown compelling force, which only made people more suspicious. That is why Dyatlov Pass became bigger than a tragedy. It became a legend, fed by the parts of the story people did not fully understand. So in the end, the Dyatlov Pass case may not be about one giant secret. It may be about three simple clues that people kept overlooking. The footprints show the group made a fast but purposeful choice. The clothing shows they were still trying to stay warm after leaving the tent. And the injuries, while shocking, may fit a tragic natural event better than the wild theories ever did. That does not make the story less disturbing. It makes it more human. 9 young people were caught in brutal conditions and forced into impossible decisions. Maybe that is the real reason this case still stays with people today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.